Hey, I wanted to talk about how to make your arbor wider. I just use this one metal frame primarily for the work that I do. It's a great size, but if you want to do something that expands out, maybe goes a little wider, I have some pieces here, these brown boxes, and I put those just right out here to extend the space that I have to work with and build out these sides a little bit and then taper off at the top and come across. So I just wanted to show you the mechanics, just simple boxes. I like to keep everything as simple as possible and as versatile as possible. So these boxes are also really easy to fill and to go down an aisle, or I have some lettuce planted in them right now. You can just use them for all kinds of things. So I have a set of those that are great to move around and use. So that's how I'm extending this space and how I'm providing water source for these things that you see down here low. Today I wanted to use some local ingredients, some beautiful mountain ingredients, and the rhododendron is key for mountain flowers. And you could sub this out for something like a large hydrangea, or you know, just another big fluffy flower if rhododendron aren't available where you are. But what I've done, I've created my base using honeysuckle, some burning bush in the early spring stage, and then this rhododendron. So that's how I'm creating this general shape that I have started for the arbor. So we're gonna hop in and do this on the opposite side of the arbor now, so you can see how all of that comes together. I am going to start by prepping these boxes, and I'm just using a little bit of chicken wire to go down in the box and to provide just a little extra support to keep my oasis from flopping back and forth. These boxes have been sealed with something called Flex Seal, which is a spray-on rubber. You can get it at Walmart or hardware store, Amazon. But just this little bit of the Flex Seal helps just to seal the inside so that it's leak proof. So you could put some water in here in addition to the foam if you'd like. But I want support for my flowers, so I'm just going to focus on keeping it all in the foam today. You could add more foam if you wanted to, if you were doing more flowers than I am. I'm just wrapping that around the foam and pressing that into the box. Next, we're going to grab the honeysuckle. And this has had quite the adventure. I was just visiting my parents up north, and I brought it back from there with me. So it's had quite a life, wiggling around in the car and coming down here. So there's a few pieces in here that are a little bit tired, but okay, so whenever you're working with these large pieces, like this is not a really beautiful piece. I have this end that's cut off. It actually would probably lend itself better to going this way. So I'm just picking through and taking an inventory of what's here and what pieces and shapes are best suited for the areas that I'm working with. Like this one, for example, is nice and low and bushy. So it would be a fantastic piece to come out here on the bottom and fill that in. Okay, and then we have this large piece that has some nice draping shapes over the sides. And I'd like my foliage to come out and extend over the frame of the arbor a little bit on this piece. Really, I'm trying to make it appear as big as possible. Like if you meet a bear in the woods, you gotta make yourself look as big as possible. There were, gosh, what was it, Jesse? There was 4 bear cubs over at Grandfather last week, and Mama Bear And I think there's one back here in the woods too. I was back there hiking around with Buster, and I just got this sixth sense that I needed to get out of the woods, and then somebody told me there was a baby bear back there, which means there's a mama bear around. So these large pieces of honeysuckle, to keep them hydrated, by far the very best foliage for an arbor is southern smilax, or Jackson vine it's called. You can put it on your arbor the day before and it will look exactly, it's very plasticky. It has that texture. If you've watched very many of the videos, I talk about that, how texture really plays a role in whether or not something's going to hold. There's several factors involved, but that's a big one. And the Jackson vine, or smilax, southern smilax, it's very leathery, very plasticky, but it has that nice airy shape to it that we like. So that's what I would prefer to have. It's off season right now in a new growth phase. But you don't have to provide a water source for that, which is nice. Can see already how these pieces are a bit fuller than the pieces that I have on the opposite side, and you could take advantage of that and do maybe a heavier moment up in that corner. But with having these side boxes, I do want to keep everything fairly symmetrical, so I'm just going to clip and adjust the shapes and the sizes of these branches until I get them to a spot that is even with my other side. And it may just be a matter of clipping this zip tie out and moving it back a bit. Let's see what that does for us. Okay. And with this one, I'm going to put the pod facing inward, just so I have a little bit more flexibility. I can put some rhododendron on the inside of my arbor. this last pod that I have, I'm going to situate it up here. I'll grab the ladder whenever we do some of our detail flowers, but I'm going to situate it up there higher so that I can carry the color up. I'll be able to use this here and that oasis down there. So I'm just going to set this little guy aside for a moment. Let's fill out the rest of our shape with this burning bush. Bring it out towards us, out to the side, and the back to create depth. We're going to pay attention to that area as well. Some of these bushier pieces are great to go low in the arrangement to cover some of these mechanics. And I also have some foam, or some, not foam, I have some moss to fill in. My bun's on the run. I need to pin that back up. Yeah, I'm happy to share how I do the bun. Yeah, just a little twist and go. Okay, so I'm just assessing balance, shape. This is a really crucial point in the overall composition of the piece. It's like when you make a centerpiece, and in the centerpiece class I talk about that first layer that you don't really think about all that much because it's not what you initially see when you look at the arrangement, but it really plays a role in the overall piece and is important to keep an eye on. If you don't have balance in this part of the arrangement, it's tough to get the rest of it to look right. Okay, we'll add our rhododendron. This rhododendron has a really great leaf structure for a base layer. Just the way that it fans and is shaped. Adds a lot of coverage low. I'm going to bring a few rhododendrons out even closer to us at the base, and then we'll move up. Okay, and that one pod that I was talking about, I want it to go right up in here, so I'm gonna set aside the piece for that. And I want to work a few in here on the sides. Hey, I'm back. We're gonna stick this piece up here and finish the shape up. I'm gonna layer in just a few little bits of this burning bush that I have left. Whoops. I'm gonna snip this piece apart a little bit, rearrange. It's a little too heavy compared to the rest of what I have going on. Okay, great. And I think this little guy should live here. So you can see there's some things coming this way, some things that are more this way. We have all these different little pockets of flowers that, in a sense, in a piece that is this big, you really need to establish, at least the way that my eye likes to see it, I like to establish sections where I can concentrate, and then within those sections, you know, this is my base flower, and then I can add some layers of flowers on top of them. So it's like little miniature displays throughout. Another way that you can do it is just simply by repetition over and over and over again, and you're equally spreading out all of your elements. But for this, we're going to concentrate in specific areas. I'm going to grab a few more flowers to layer in. I have a few little pieces of Wisteria. I'm calling this my little finishing foliage. I just have a few stems of it. So I'm going to set that down here. We'll come back to that in a minute. But let's layer in some lilac next. So each place that I have one of these pockets, With the rhododendron, I'm gonna add a little bit of lilac as well. And some of these longer pieces, after I snip out some sides, I think they'd be great to go down in my boxes. And I might not have enough to carry that through, and if not, we'll just keep popping it back in these little places, but let's see where we land. A lot of times arbors are the last thing that you're putting together on event day in the hottest possible sun, and everything starts looking sleepy, like, oh, sleepy and thirsty. But it's funny, I'll go back to clean the wedding up and the arbor is perked right back up again and happy as can be. But just assembling it in that heat is tough. Those 4:30, 5 o'clock weddings. Something you need to discuss with your client and just let them know that if your wedding's outside, that temperature control is something that they just need to be aware of it. I'm a big fan of ballroom weddings. I like it. I love it when there's a loading dock and I take everything up in an elevator. Feels very luxurious. But most of the weddings up here where I am are all outside. And in Boone it's a little cooler than a lot of places in the country, but can still get pretty hot in the summertime. Too many flowers in this. Whenever flowers are grouped together like this, it creates a bit of a focal point with that concentration in color, and I'm not interested in that becoming a focal point. Next, I had just a few little treasures. I have some wild geranium, a couple little ferns, some foxglove, and Scillia. This is one of my favorite. Very similar to hyacinth, but just a little bit more delicate. So they also, if you are using bulbs, they make an oasis called Springtime for bulbs specifically. It's a little bit easier for them to go in. So that's something to consider if you feel like you need it. So since I have the most, what I'll often do is whatever I have the most of is what I'll start with. And I'll go all over with it. And then some of these little special treasures I'll just have to put in groups to make them shine. This arbor would be really pretty with that cool tones wedding lesson that we did in the reception and centerpiece class, wouldn't it? I talked to Jesse, he doesn't always talk back. I love how the shape of these allows me just to have that little pop of color, but to keep it light. If you want your arrangements to feel light, the ingredients you pick and how much space you place between them is what allows you to do that. If you want them to feel really luxurious and full, then you're going to pick a lot of ingredients that are like the rhododendron instead. And just like we talked about, adding some to the back for depth, that's what I'm doing here. So that I have that little pop further in the arrangement. I'm going to even add just a few down here in this box. They're very small, so you're not going to see them real well, but some of these longer stems will group. I think the foxglove that I have will be perfect for these boxes low. As I get to this phase in the arrangement, usually there's like 20 minutes left and the guests are going to be here really soon, so I'll have some people handing me things or helping clean up my little mess on the ground here. And I'm also at this point thinking through, just noticing within these pods where I see some space that needs covered. So some of my leftover rhododendron foliage or anything like that can go in. Arbors are also great for anything that you have that's left over. I find that my arbors always are maybe a little bit fuller than anticipated because I find that I have, oh, let's put this in there too, and that kind of thing. So I like to ask, hey, if I have some extra things, can we beef that up? And the answer is almost always a resounding yes. But if there's one thing on my proposals that I feel like looks different, it's usually an arbor because I find some extra little treasures to add as I'm on my way out. Just need to add a couple in the top. Let's put the tallest one in here. Soften up that honeysuckle branch. Let's add this last little one up here. Wild geranium ferns. These are just that light, airy piece on top of all the flowers we have. And you could do without it if you needed to. I think the ferns we'll put up here. This spray right here will be likely in a lot of their photos, depending on the angle the photographer's shooting from, of course, but if there's one area of your arbor that you know, if there needs to be garden roses in it, but there's not a big budget for it, or, you know, whatever, just concentrate on one area in particular and do it really well, and just lighten up your other areas a bit. Okay, let's see about this wisteria. And then we're going to go back in and finish up covering all our mechanics with some moss. I need to have this in some water, and we'll weave it through. Would be really pretty laid out on the grass too. Down in this area, I think this might be, I just had a few little snips of this. This is the only one I've got. Let's look at it right in here. Kind of has a funny curve to the stem, so I'm going to straighten that up so it's easy for me to find my way to the oasis. but we can still use this other piece. I have moss in that side from earlier, but I'm gonna add just a little bit to soften the boxes on the sides here. And then I'm going to add it in each of these little compartments to cover my oasis pieces. That allows me to use less foliage and greenery and flowers, and that helps to keep things airy. So if you have a flat cover like this, it can be a big help. Use a little glue if you want, use some greening pins if you want. Weave it throughout the branches like I'm doing. However you want to do it. Adding a little extra so it's not, so that too becomes a part of the piece, so you want to be thinking about having that balanced. So it might look nice to add a little bit more here or there, which is all I was doing right then. I have a bumblebee friend up here. I was just watching a movie about this. Gosh, I wish you could see that. It has little pockets on its legs to hold its, everything it gathers has built-in pockets. We need those, don't we? Yeah, florists need built-in pockets to keep all of our stuff. Okay, we'll just wrap this in, cover up the boxes. Oh, here's one more piece. I can't remember if it was a radio program I listened to once, but it was like, if you're looking for something, the whole premise was if you're looking for something, you'll find it. So when I'm looking to cover some of these things, I just think to myself, chicken wire, chicken wire, chicken wire, chicken wire. And then it's easier for you to spot it faster. I guess this person did an experiment where they looked for pennies every day, and every day for like an entire year they would find a penny in a parking lot. So it's good to focus your mind on. Your mind is a very powerful thing, so focus it on the things that you're looking for and that you want to see. If you want to be happy, you have to think about it. Notice the things that are out there that make you happy instead of focusing on the things that don't. Okay, I'm gonna get this cleaned up. See you in a minute.